for your input. I just got new instructions that let's then proceed with the program. I'll be calling Dr. Nduna Watson to come and give us closing remarks. If you could make it sweet and short if you can. Let's give a round of applause. Let's do that. We can do better than that. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I want to appreciate the MEC, Makwe from the Free State. It's true, the Free State is a sleeping giant. We always say to Gauteng and Western Cape, watch out for the Free State. I just want to share with you a couple of things, 3 things. Just some of the fact that we have an implementation plan for math and science. Number 2, that some of the things that the minister is doing currently. And thirdly, just to talk about partnerships, to say what is it that we think partnerships should be doing. Now, as you know, the department has an action plan, we call it Action Plan 2014 towards Schooling 2025. This action plan, unlike other plans in the past, we have targets for math and science. And we also have targets for learners who should access the bachelor's degree. Now, in terms of mathematics, we're saying we need goal number 5 of Action Plan 2014 is that we want to increase the number of grade 12 learners who pass mathematics, and goal number 6 is that we want to increase the number of grade 12 learners who pass physical science. And we problematized this area of math and science, and we said, what is the problem currently? Let's look at some areas that are problematic, and we need to address these areas. We have about 9 such statements in our problem statement. Firstly, like the prof said, there's a myth around the fact that math and science is difficult. And we need to demystify that. Because all of us in our daily activities, we deal with mathematics and science. Although we don't call that math and science, but this is what we're doing. And maybe the teachers who are teaching math and science must actually contextualize what learners are doing and say, the jargon in mathematics, we call what we're doing this. That's why what we've done, we've developed a booklet for teachers for them to do their practicals. So we're saying, even though you might not have maybe a lab, there are certain things that you are doing, you are using at home that you can use, in your classroom, to do practicals. You can use bicarbonate of soda to do 1, 2, and 3 with water. It will, But we're saying we cannot say math and science is difficult. We need to demystify that. Secondly, we're saying poor teacher development in both in-service and pre-service. We're finding that our higher education institutions are not preparing our teachers the way they should. The education faculties don't speak to the science, the physics faculty, or the chemistry faculty, or the mathematics faculty. There's a problem in higher education. They work in silos. We wanted one time to have a meeting, because we're doing physical science, to bring the chemists and the physics together. We're told they don't, in one room, you'll never find a physics and a chemist. There's a problem. So, in terms of child development, we're saying both our in-service, our department and provincial departments are not doing much in terms of in-service training. We have so many NGOs working in our schools and in our districts, but we are saying, what is it that they're doing in terms of in-service? You'll hear when I talk about partnerships, what ideas we have for our social partners to work together with us to say this is what we need to do to focus on in-service training. Of course, the issue of non-utilization of lab equipment and chemicals. Let me tell you, if you go to our schools now, if you can just say to you, deploy you to most of our schools. If you go, you ask the principal, can you please open the storerooms, you'll be shocked what you're going to find. Equipment in boxes. You go to labs that have not been used. We say we don't have labs, you find chemicals that are as old as 20 years, or 10, I'm exaggerating, but very old, because they don't use those labs. Chemicals are locked somewhere, because somebody is lazy to take responsibility for the stock, for the inventory. Of course, you alluded to poor subject choices and combinations by school learners. As parents, we need to take responsibility. You know, want to say the school this, but you are the parent. I normally say to parents when they come and complain to us to say, no, the school doesn't want my child to do this. And I say, tell the principal, this is your child. Your child has a future, and not the principal. Because already the principal has a future. We need to be involved in our schools to tell principals, because principals are only interested in getting 100%. And at times, if you look at the very 100%, the quality of the 100% is questionable. So as parents want to sit back and say, you know, the school says, but whose child is it? The school is there because your children are there. Let's get involved. Because schools at times force learners to change subjects. A child will change from mathematics to mathematical literacy in grade 12. And as a parent, you say, well, the school says that. What are you saying as a parent? Because tomorrow, you are sitting with this problem in your own home. The principal will be far away. Now, let's get involved and not make ourselves ignorant. And at times, what surprises me is the very parents who you think know, who want to say, you know, the school says, but I'm saying, what are you saying as a parent? Poor subject choices, where you have a combination of a child taking mathematical literacy and physical science, mathematical literacy and accounting. So let's look at subject choices. One of the challenges that we have, all our reports, whether it's annual report, the annual national assessment reports, or the national scenario reports, the issue of poor language, because we're using English as a language of teaching and learning. But the problem is, as parents, our children don't read for pleasure. You know, practice makes perfect. Our kids are good at, you know, all the gadgets, the SMSs, but do they read for pleasure? If it's not prescribed, it's not read. Remember during our days, when we were in Form 1, although we had prescribed works, you had to read 5 more books. I remember, you know, we used to be tricky. We thought we were clever than the teacher in Form 1. I remember summarizing Tom Sawyer. You know, it's a summary of a summary of a summary. Then the teacher would come and say, okay, tell me about the books that you've read. I say, Tom Sawyer, okay, fine, but I tell him only the summary. And he say, did you read the book? And you say, yes. He starts asking you the other questions. And I tell you, you're going to get it and you're going to go and read. So let's bring back the culture of reading for pleasure. Let's make sure that those libraries, in the libraries, we don't only find our kids during exam time, because that's when they're there. And not to read, but to study for exams. The culture of reading for pleasure in every grade, so that we say, you know, and librarians are ready to bring books, the libraries, to our schools, okay? And of course, another thing, I know that provinces are doing this, but you know, we need to encourage subject committees, learning communities, where teachers share best practice. We need to encourage that. And of course, we're saying to our partners, yourselves, we talk of lack of incentives for math and science teachers, because industry is there poaching our teachers. Now, what kind of incentives can we give to our teachers to stay in teaching? You know, I know that Mr. Hadebe Morris was saying to Prof, you know, in gesture. But if Prof has to stay in academia, he needs to be incentivized. So let's give Prof other things that will make him stay, you know, at the University of Pretoria. You know, give him something. How? I thought you were going to class. And then in our schools, we have poor utilization of ICT. How can we help our schools to make use of ICT? Now, once schools put computers, the following day our schools are vandalized. And where are we when our schools are vandalized? You know, And what we do, we actually buy these computers from these guys because they're cheap. Your child's school has been vandalized, and we deprive our children the use of ICT. And of course, as a department, what we're not doing, what we've not done well is to monitor and support our schools. We have not monitored our schools enough, and we're not giving our schools enough support. And somebody was talking about conditions for success. If we want our schools to succeed, we've identified the following things. We said, these are conditions for our schools to succeed. Our schools need to be functional. You know, if you read the national, the planning committee's report, it says 80% of our schools are dysfunctional. 80%, we're talking 20,000 schools in this country that are dysfunctional. Now, we must make sure that our schools function. From, you know, the school management team, the teachers, the learners, everything. We need to make sure that our schools function. Leadership in our schools. In most of these schools, who do we put in our schools to become leaders in our schools? You know, if you are a member of an SGB, do you put somebody that you know because it's your friend, even if they don't have the skills to become leaders? Now, that's a problem in our schools. That's why most of them are dysfunctional. Availability of qualified and competent maths and science teachers and technology teachers. Most of the posts are vacant. Availability of textbooks. Yes, as a department, we have made sure that every learner has a textbook or 7 textbooks in the subjects that they're offering, but we must make sure that every child, you cannot go to school without a textbook. And what is the role of our partners in that regard? If you find that other schools don't have textbook, what do you do? We must make sure that we increase the number of learners who offer mathematics, science, and technology. And one speaker spoke about timetable being in place. You know, we take timetable to be something that is very easy or simple. If you go to a school or when you visit schools, one of the first things that you need to look at is the timetable. Whether the instructional time is enough. Because you can have physical science and mathematics. It's there, but is it given enough time that it should be given? So a timetable is very important. And of course, we're saying it's important for us to use our partners effectively. Now, I want to share with you what the minister has done, because the minister is also worried about the performance of math and science. Currently, the minister has established a team that is going around provinces. This team is led by Professor Bradley, John Bradley from Wits. Some of you know him. And it's a team of experts that is going around provinces. They are interviewing learners, teachers, district people, and as I was sitting there, I said, maybe they should also interview our private partners. The questions that they've got clear terms of reference, and maybe one of the things that they want to find out is that, why is that South Africans cannot do mathematics and science? You know, last week when the budget was read, you know that education got the biggest budget. I know, you know, if we were to compare with Mozambique and other countries, we need to be saying, do we get value for money? Why is that our kids cannot do mathematics and science? Because we believe, or I believe, that when children come to school, already they know mathematics. Have you seen them doing fractions? They can do that. But somehow, once they get into, you know, the classroom situation, something happens. Because when we do our item analysis in mathematics and science and other subjects, we find that our learners are lacking, cannot do basic functions. South African kids cannot do fractions, cannot do ratios, cannot do some that do space. You know, we're saying, why is this? Is it the pedagogy? Because at times we find that we have teachers that have mastered, maybe they've got honors in mathematics, but they can't teach. Is it in the pedagogy? Because I believe our children have got the ability and the potential. But what happens inside the classroom? We need actually to check what is happening in terms of our pre-service and our in-service. We know that universities can only take 30% of our learners who pass matric. Only 30%. Worldwide, 30%. And what happens to the other 70%? Now, what we have done is to share with you that at the moment, we are really looking at the technology curriculum. The technology, we're talking subjects, chemical, civil technology, electrical technology, and civil. We're now going to introduce specializations in these subjects so that the artisans that we need, the technicians that we need, can come from these learners. Well, currently we're reworking the curriculum, and soon we'll be putting it out for public comment, and the teams that are rewriting this curriculum come from industry, come from education, come from the professional bodies, so that we want to make sure that we skill our kids, those who cannot go to university, but at the same time, not block them to end there. We're saying there's lifelong learning. We need to have a balance between the curriculum in industry and that of the universities of technology, so that these learners eventually can access higher education. I've mentioned the fact that we need to have partnerships. And before I really come to the partnerships, is that what is that we can do, the partners can do, to make sure that they provide our learners with experiential learning? Because I think that's where our kids fail, because they don't have experiential learning. We need to open our companies during winter and summer vacation. Let our kids come into your companies. Give them that experience. At times it's not a question of paying them, because they want to volunteer. Just give them space so that they can be mentored, they can learn the skills of the trade in your organizations. We need you to provide, the department doesn't have, as I said, qualified math and science teachers. Just pay for one teacher who can be an itinerant teacher, who can move around 3 or 4 schools. To say, as an organization, we're going to employ this particular person, this particular teacher must move from around the 3 or 4 schools. If it's a good math teacher, let them teach, but getting support from the industry. Contribute incentives to our teachers. At times, our teachers don't want money. You can actually say to them, okay, as an organization, like Eagle Foundation, we'll give you maybe 3 weeks or 2 weeks vacation. That in itself, if you remain in teaching, it's an incentive. With your family, some teachers have never gone on holiday with their families, to say, okay, we're pledging every year, so long as you stay in teaching, guaranteed, every December with your family, you are going to take you for holiday. That's an incentive for somebody to stay in teaching. Okay. The issue around methodological literacy has been sorted out because I wanted to talk to it. But one of the things that I wanted us to talk about is around partnerships. We have so many partners or organizations working in our schools. But do we have value for money? The question is no. Because if we had value for money, we'll be seeing results. What is it that we're doing that is not right, that we need to collectively improve in terms of our partnerships? There are challenges around partnerships. Number one, the first challenge is that there are no mechanisms and procedures which facilitate partnership building. You find that, I won't mention names, I'm just saying a company goes to a school, maybe because my child goes to that school. I go to the principal and say, I want to support you. The principal says yes, and you say, you just pump money. You just pump money because you say, that's where my child is going. In other words, we don't have any mechanism to say, if I pump this money, what do you have MOUs? And because you don't have that, you don't see value for money. There's no clarity between the departmental structures for aspirant partners. At times when people come to the department, they say, I've written this proposal because I heard the minister say we need to partner with schools. And we ask questions to say, why do you think you need this money? People don't sit and think, if I go to a school, do I meet the school's needs? Do we sit down and say, what are the gaps? What does a school need for me to support? That's why you always complain that you don't get development, because you come with your own perceptions to a school. You don't look at a school's needs. Maybe a school just needs good management system. And if the management can be good, and the other things will come. You understand? But we don't have that. And then, what do we need as a department to do? We also need to be committed to our partners. Half the time we've got our partners, they pump money, but we don't know what they're doing. We don't monitor, we don't evaluate the programs. Maybe times we say, hey, this is a very big company. If, I'm not sure, if maybe we monitor and we find these flaws, but we need to be saying to our partners, this is what we need, we'll be coming to monitor. And the partners themselves to critically evaluate their role in those schools and not wait for the DPE to do that. Now we know that the department or the minister has signed an MOU or an accord with various companies. We know that she signed an accord with organized labor, COSATU, FEDUSA. We know that she signed an accord with Business Unity South Africa. But the most important thing is that what do we do with that accord? Signing is one thing. Are we going to make sure that that accord works? Now I've got a couple of questions that I need to be answered. I'm going to pose those questions to you. I'm saying, the first question, are companies reaping the benefits from their investments? If no, why not? If yes, what have you done? So that we can learn lessons from you. Number two, who benefits from these partnerships? Now, who benefits? Because are we doing it because we're obliged to give back to schools, or is it because I want to see the children of this country benefiting from whatever I'm putting into the schools? And number three, I'm saying, why do schools continue to underperform in MST despite resources pumped by the private sector? We're talking millions that are being pumped. And then what is the purpose of supporting schools? Then who monitors the use of resources in those schools? And maybe why is DBE seen as the missing link? If you look at us and say, in this partnership, where is the department? Maybe you've got answers to say to us, department, you are not doing 1, 2, 3 in this partnership. We need actually to answer these questions. And of course, I want to thank Eagle Foundation for this wonderful breakfast.